for a dream sky. To rely on yourself in no way. Believe.
Good morning, everybody. My voice is a little better today, but I'm still feeling a little bit weird too. But I got something to talk about today. I had to miss yesterday. But one, I didn't get a topic, and two, I sure could use that rest. I was so happy. So, I mean, I didn't really rest. So, it is what it is, though. Um, so as I was dealing with God in my own time, so as I was dealing with God in my own time, I mean, I don't normally do what everybody else considers devotionals. I don't sit down with a another devotional book and spend. It's more of a all day kind of thing, and I'm always on the prowl to listen to what he's got to be telling me. So this came up in a conversation a while back with someone I had, and I kept asking them, "What has science figured out?" And I mean that in all sincerity. What have they figured out outside of observation? Like what makes dirt dirt? Like why is dirt dirt? I know you can tell me the composition of dirt. You can tell me what elements bind with what elements, but you can't tell me why. You can tell me that they're averse to other things, but you can't tell me why. You can make a suggestion by assigning it a value and saying this is why it doesn't, but you still can't tell me why. You observe that A going against B can't connect because B is opposite to A, but you can't tell me why B is opposite to A. You just say it is. And even when you break it down to an even more micro level, you still can't tell me why things function the way they function. You can tell me that they function. You can say, you assume they function, and you can tell me it's observable that they function, but you cannot tell me why. Now, maybe it's just me, but if you're going to claim that your position is that you believe science because science gives you answers, I will give you this. Science gives you um, discoverable things. Science can explain things by observation, interaction, and experimentation, but science cannot tell you why any of their experiments worked or failed. They can't. And I hope someone watching this is a science believer, a massive brain on science. I am hoping that that person can send me a message and explain to me the why. The same way you ask us why we believe in God, I am going to ask you to give me the why of science. You can give me the where, you can give me the what, you can give me the how. But for some reason, that why, that why eludes you. So when we talk about stuff like the Big Bang, tell me why. I don't, you don't even know how. First, you're assuming how, but tell me the why. Why is it that an explosion caused something as so consequential as the brain? Why is it that an explosion caused something so consequential as the eyes, the nervous system? The spine. To this day, man cannot replicate the spine. To this day. To this day, a scientist cannot, impossible, replicate what the spine does, and they cannot create the spine in what it does, how it's built, and to integrate it into a human. They can't do that yet. So, we are here to find out how many of these people have asked the why to this particular issue. So, I went looking and I found this article because really that's all you can depend on, right? Is articles for science. You can't. And this is the article on the eye. Okay? The eye. I went looking specifically for the eye because it's the one thing that science has a very difficult time even explaining how it works. They just know that it works. Let's go. How the eye works. All the different parts of your eyes work together to help you see. Why? Right off the top, why? You are just telling me something that's observable. That's it. You're like that. It's copyright infringement. you, you're looking at stuff you didn't have any say in, but you want to say people that you discovered. And the same way they did dog Columbus, right? They dog him for not discovering the lands he said he discovered. Oh, you came across it because, but when science does it, it's a breakthrough. When when science discovers crap that's already been happening for years, all of a sudden science has discovered. With Columbus do it, oh, he lied. That wasn't discovery. It was already there. First, light passes through the cornea, the front layer of the eye. The cornea is shaped like a dome and bends light to help the eye focus. Why? Some of the light enters the eye through an opening called the pupil. The iris, there's the colored part that control how much light the pupils get in. Why? Well, why? I'm just going to keep asking why after all of this, okay? Next, the light passes through the lens. The lens work together with the cornea to focus light correctly on the retina. Why? When light hits the retina, a light-sensitive layer of tissue in the back of the eye, special cells called photoreceptors turn the light into electrical signals. These electrical signals travel from the retina through the optic nerve to the brain, then the brain turns the signal into images you see. So they can replicate that in cameras, right? To an extent, they can replicate it in cameras. And the camera was really the first real glimpse into replicating something outside of the body in such realistic realistic proportions that it's lifelike because it's a picture, right? You can translate what you see into a piece of paper, and here you have it, a picture. Now, if you've done any kind of photography or classes, you also know that the image comes in upside down in your. Did you know that? And I found this out about 20 years ago, that the image that you're seeing is not what is there. Didn't know if you knew that. What you're seeing is not what's there. When the electrical signal travels from retina to the optic nerve, turn it into, okay. So here you go. Here, all right. So that's how they. That's the definition of the eye. That's it. Okay, that's it. So the world is technically upside down. It's technically upside down. So they haven't answered the why. Um, it is a interesting thing Um, no, no, for real, for real, for real. I'm dead serious. The world is actually upside down. They say this is what they say. Okay, and the eye inverts everything. But you still can't tell me why. You know all of that there, and you cannot tell me why. Okay, so here's the article. We are going to discuss this for a reason. Okay, I'll get there. Just hang on. Even though the lens of your eye projects an upside down 2D image on your retina, you see everything right side up and in 3D, which gives you proper visual orientation and the depth perception you need to catch a ball or safely navigate a set of stairs. Light from an external source enters through the pupil of the eye and forms an upside down image on the retina, and the retina detects the photons of light by responding by firing new, neural impulses to the optic nerve, and the brain uses the electrical impulse to create a right side up 3D image. But why is the incoming object upside down? So they finally ask a why. Let's see if we get a why. A good illustration is the way your eye takes in light and flips the image upside down. This is how the pupils work like a pinhole camera. You're not telling me again why, you're telling me how. You see, they ask, but why is the incoming image upside down? Light enters the pinhole camera through the very tiny pinhole aperture, and because light moves in a straight line, the rays of light coming from the top to the bottom of the scene interact with the pinhole. That the intersection convergence is what flips the image upside down. Why, though? This is a how. These are all hows, they are not why. Science is about how, not about why. I can ask them about that all day, Kim. They can tell me that it does. They can tell me how it affects things. They cannot tell me why. They will say differences in atmospheric this and this with the earth and the spinning and all, but why? It's still observing. You are still observing. You are taking science 1 billion% on faith. Mankind that don't believe in God believe in science. Science has become their God because it takes a whole lot of faith to believe science. Just telling me that the eye works this way. Okay, so you can look at you. You have powers of observation, and you found a new way to observe something about the human body. But why? You see, I can give you a why for my belief. I have a why. Why is the eye the way it is? Because God. Science says, why the eye is the way it is? Because. But my theory that relies on faith is wrong. Yours that relies on faith is right. I keep telling people, if you believe that science is right, more power to you. Go for it. Believe science. The same way you should allow me to have faith that my God is indeed the reason for everything. He is the why. He's the why. You see, and mankind will do this too. They will change the essence of a thing in order to facilitate what they want. Case in point, why is a fetus considered a clump of cells by people who want to abort it? First of all, they have no real idea of why the body operates the way it operates with the interaction between a sperm and an egg. They cannot tell me a why. They just know an observable fact that a sperm finds an egg and gets in. Observable. I can tell you that God created that sperm and that egg to be interactive with each other on purpose. I'm the cuckoo. You're looking at something and then saying that you discovered it. You're looking at something and say that, wow, I figured out how it works. You're looking at something that you never had any say in and saying that you had a breakthrough. But I'm the cuckoo one. You are observing God. You want to know why? Okay, I'm gonna go to this real quick. Um, I want to find this real quick. In Romans 1, okay, in Romans 1, I'm gonna read this so people can understand something real quick. I want to do this from verse 15, I believe. Let's go from 10. Let's go from 10. That might be better. And no, let's go to 8. All right, I'll get this one. I'll make sure I want to go from the right spot. Okay, good. We'll go from 8. That is what I thought, but I was hoping to catch it right there. Now, first, thank my God through Jesus Christ for all of you, that your faith is spoken of throughout the whole world. For God is my witness, whom I serve with my spirit in the gospel of his Son, that without ceasing I make mention of you always in my prayer, making request if by some means now at last I may find a way in the will of God to come to you. For I long to see you, that I may impart to you some spiritual gift, so that you may be established. That is, that I may be encouraged together with you by the mutual faith, both of you and me. Now, I do not want you to be unaware, brethren, that I often planned to come to you, but I was hindered until now, that I might have some fruit among you also, just as among the Gentiles. I am a debtor both to Greek and to barbarians, both to the wise and the unwise. So, as much as is in me, I am ready to preach the gospel to you who are in Rome also. For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God to salvation for everyone who believes, for the Jew first, and also the Greek. For it is in the righteousness of God, for in it the righteousness of God is revealed from faith to faith, as it was written, the just shall live by faith. Now here it is. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against the ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who suppress the truth in unrighteousness, because what may be known of God is manifest in them. For God has shown it to them. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that he made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Now, I will say this until the day I die: science is the religion of man. And I will make the correlation now that I can prove my why. I have a why, and science does not. In an effort to make science the go to method of anything, science has found a way to kill billions of people. For the sake of science, billions have died. For the sake of proving someone or something true, science has killed many. It's allowed the death of many. Science has a method to let something run its course on someone to see the outcome of that thing on the person. even if it is to the detriment and fate of that person. But that is acceptable because we need to know. When God does it, he's genocidal. When God has allowed something to progress and he sits by and waits, and even if you pray, he allows things to happen, he's genocidal and angry. When science, you say, when man can step in and do something and you don't, we just didn't have the technology. We are still trying to figure it out. We just couldn't help him. Um, Maybe he didn't have the right care. We're sorry, but that's completely fine. Science has been used to eradicate billions of people. Tuskegee experiment, AIDS, Hitler, Mussolini, Idi Amin. They're all use science. The US in nukes, science. Science has been used to the detriment of the human race for forever, but it is always looked as the good guy. We use technology, science, but they cannot tell me the why for any of the things they either allow or do. Cancer's been around how long now? Anybody know how long cancer has been around? Any or when was the first time someone figured out cancer? Science, remember? It is believed that Egypt was one of the first peoples to discover cancer. Okay, it was documented in about 5,000 years ago. Have we been able to find a cure for cancer? Have we? You've had 5,000 years. Where's the cure? And if there is a cure and man does not want cure to be known, how is that any worse or any better than you saying God withholding his saving of people who are in poverty, starving, hungry? If your science is keeping a cure from you, how is that any different than your accusation to God that he is keeping blessings from people? No different. But because you agree with science, you're fine. You see, the thing is, we can say, because God is sovereign, he can do as he wishes. It is his creation to do as he pleases. You, on the other hand, cannot say that about science. But you can tell me that we can't control everything and things just happen because. I have a why, you do not. If you asked him, why does chemical A not want to mix with chemical B? This is the question you can ask any atheistic scientist. Ask him this question. Why does chemical A not interact with chemical B? But if you introduce chemical C in between A and B, the three will link, remove C, A and B separate. Why? Then they'll tell you, well, because A and B are not compatible. And then you ask them, why? You want to stump an atheist? Want to stomp uh, a scientist? Keep asking them why. Keep asking them why. They will never be able to answer why. Um, what's your point? I, I'm not using math as a answer to math. I'm using it as a reasoning. Chemical A, chemical B don't interact, but if you put chemical C in between them, they somehow bond. I'm not saying that is what an actual thing, but things in science happen like this, where two things don't correlate with each other, and you bring a third thing into the equation. All of a sudden, they all three correlate, but remove that third piece, and they don't anymore, and they can't tell you why. They can tell you that it doesn't, but they can't tell you why. They can't tell you why A and B don't aren't compatible. They can't tell you why putting C in it makes all three of them agree all of a sudden. They can tell you that there are synapses firing in the brain and there's chemical reaction in the brain. They can't tell you why. They can't. They can't even tell you why your bones fuse back together. They can tell you that it does. They can facilitate it happening. They cannot tell you why. The only answer you will get is that it was just that way. Do you ever notice that they're always enthusiastic about their answer? Why aren't we? We actually have a why. They don't, and they have a whole lot more exuberance for their lack of a why than we have for a possessing of a why. Does any of that make sense to people? You have the creator, you have the reasons he created it, you have the why he created it, you have the how he created it, you have the why it functions the way it functions in your hand. And you are allowing people who don't have a why for anything to have a bigger voice than you. And you cower to them. You shy away from the truth you have. You shy away from it. It is insane to me that believers can have the treasure they have and abuse it so. We hear the story about the talents, right? Um, and many people think, oh, that's about the talents that God gave you, right? I mean, it means that God gave you something, and you just kind of put it aside, and you don't use it properly, and blah 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 blah. Really? Here's my question to you. Okay, did did God call what we have in us a treasure? Did He? Let's read this. This is in Matthew 25. For the kingdom of heaven is like a man traveling to a far off country who called his own servants and delivered his goods to them. And to one he gave 5 talents, to another two, and to another one, to each according to his own ability. And immediately he went on a journey. Then he had and then he who had received 5 talents went and traded them, and made another 5 talents. And likewise he who had received two gained two more. But the one who received one went and dug in the ground and hid his Lord's money. After a long time, the Lord of those servants came back and settled accounts with them. So who he had gave the 5 talents to, he brought other 5 talents, saying, Lord, you have delivered to me 5 talents. Look, I have gained 5 more talents besides them. His Lord looked at him and said, well done, good and faithful servant. You are faithful with few things. I will make you rule over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord. He also went to the one of 2 talents and came and said, Lord, Lord, you have given me two. Look, I've gained two more besides them. Lord said, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in few things. I'll make you rule over many things. You may enter the joy of your Lord. And he received the one who had the 1 talent. Lord, I knew you were a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you had not scattered seed. So I was afraid and went and hid your talent in the ground. Look, there you have what is yours. But the Lord answered him, you wicked and lazy servant, you knew that I reap where I don't sow, and I gather where I didn't scatter seed. So you ought to have deposited my money in the bankers, and at my coming I would have obtained back my own with interest. So he took the talent from him and gave it to him who had 10 talents. Look, for all intents and purposes, for all intents and purposes, the God we serve has given us himself to house in our vessels. And I don't mean we are gods. I mean the incorruptible nature has made its home with our soul. And we, since it's such a great treasure, should be, ought to be happy to invest somewhere else. Invest that somewhere else. There are scientific people, atheists, who invest all of what they have of their faith into everything they do. They live, eat, breathe, sleep by it. We don't. Christians today are some of the most cowardly people. They are some of the most cowardly people because they do not, one, understand who they serve, care to know who they serve, and they're afraid of people more than they are afraid of who they serve. I've said this multiple times too. Reverence for God and fear for God is almost non existent anymore. There's no more fear amongst men for God. And I mean reverent fear. There's not, it's gone. It's simply gone. It is simply gone. Science can't give you a why. God is my why. God is your why. You have something that atheists and science don't have, but you clam up. You're afraid you'll be judged as a bigot. You're afraid you'll be judged as a homophobe. You're afraid you'll be judged as a hypocrite. You're afraid you'll be judged. You're afraid. Do not fear man. You have a why. And look at this. Don't even care whether or not they ask, well, that's not a good enough why. Well, that's okay. I still have one. I'm still one step ahead of you when it comes to the reasons why I believe what I believe. You don't have one. I'm doing better than you. Even if you consider it fake, imaginary, I still have something. You don't. And besides, I'm not investing my belief in the system for you. I'm investing this for me and my God. I'm sorry to say that there are way too many of us like the 1 talent guy. We have God, and we're not going to go and just put him out there. That's too much. This is a personal thing. It's me and him, no one else. When somebody asks me, I don't know, just hide that real quick. I don't need, nobody needs to know that I follow God. Just kind of cover that over. If that's how you want to be, then be. But your opponent doesn't have a why and is more adamant about his point than you are. Heck, Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses do more work than actual Christians. They go door to door. They send people out on mission trips. There's an actual thing you have to be done before you can even say that you're a part of the church. And at least they're doing something. What are Christians doing? What are Christians doing? We don't do anything. We can put on a really good show, though. We can do a good concert. We have good radio. We can make a couple good songs. Um, we can be hip. We can do all that. But can you tell people your why? Or are you just a good enough person to sit in the pew? I'm simply asking those who believe to do one thing. This is all I'm asking you to do. And it's not for me. This is for the person you say you serve. Is he worth ridicule? And if he is worth ridicule, go make yourself the ridicule of your town. If people are going to mock you, embrace it. Embrace it. See, I've always thought that this slap on one cheek, turn the other cheek. People kept telling me that's a meaning that you take the abuse. You never ask yourself why you're getting the slap in the first place. Say somebody does slap you because one, they don't believe in God or they don't believe the way you believe. If you know what you know, you can repeat it and not care if you get slapped again. Is he worth all of this to you? Is he worth people calling you everything under the sun, lying on you, abusing you physically? Is he worth it? Is he worth it? We talk a big game. We do. Christians talk big. We are just like Peter. We talk real big. And then when stuff happens, we're done. I encourage you guys, just like I tell the atheists, if you don't believe in God, live like he's not there. But people, if you believe in God, act like he is. Act like he is. I'm just saying. I want to get into some more philosophical topics in the next couple of weeks. And I understand for many it will be a little boring. Um, I do want to go through a book for the week with you. And that book, it's a toss up right now between um, Mere Christianity and um, the name is on the tip of my tongue. John Eldridge wrote the book, Wild at Heart. Wild at Heart or Mere Christianity. The reasons I want to go through those books is not because I consider them on par with the Bible or anything like that. Um, the mere Christianity one I want to go through because of the coming of C.S. Lewis from the atheistic side to the God side. And I think it'll give people a little bit of an inclination of how to speak to people who are not believers. Because I think a lot of people don't know how to interact with someone who doesn't believe. Because let's be honest, people who don't believe come at you from 50 billion different directions, and you have to try and field all of it. And what we normally tend to do is field it based on what they're saying, not what the truth is. That's our problem. We base it based on the question, and we do not answer from a point of authority, which is his word. We don't do that. So we'll talk about that. Either mere Christianity or Wild at Heart. Wild at Heart is more of a look at God's love in the pursuant kind of way, where he pursues, and how men exemplify the feral nature of our relationship with God, and how it's very raw. There isn't a whole lot of in his word, and I guess in a lot of ways, when you hear Wild at Heart, you hear there's no boundaries, but there really isn't boundaries when it comes to God like that. But when we read the book, you'll understand what I mean. Mere Christianity, like I said, is from the atheistic side. C.S. Lewis wrote it. C.S. Lewis, the guy who wrote all of the Chronicles of Narnia and Silver Chair and all that stuff. So that'll be next week. Really good book. In any case, Savage Patriots will be on today. Like I told you guys, I'm still on the upswing, slowly but surely, of this illness. The fatigue is the one that's killing me right now. It's not even that I can't breathe. It's just I'm just tired all the time. So I don't even know what's going on there. But I'm gonna do some more tea, go back to the gym, go to the sauna, try and burn it out, see what happens. We'll go from there. But we'll be back on today with the Savage Patriots to discuss the possibility of this America's inclusion in the Middle East and between Ukraine and Russia, if it's going to escalate to World War III, and how it would do so. And if that would mean any fallout for us here in the U.S. if the U.S. does participate. Do we become a target? Citizens become a target. So we're talking about that on Savage Patriots. Yeah, let me grab it real quick. Because hold on. Here you go. For those asking for that Rumble link, there's the video itself right there. Okay. So we'll talk later on that. So we'll catch up later. Y'all have a grand rest of the day. Scrolling on the bottom, of course, again, options for helping, if that's something that he told you to do. If not, listen. We'll catch up tomorrow morning. If he drops something on me, don't have anything yet, but you know how that works. You know how that works by now. Love you guys. Wisdom calls to you from the streets. So please, please, please find wisdom. Peace.
Hold tight to dreams, for if dreams die, rely on yourself and know